Franz Joseph Haydn was born on March 31, 1732 in Rohrau, Austria. He is often nicknamed Father of the Symphony or Father of the String Quartet because of the immense impact he had on those musical forms. Haydn was a composer of the classical period who produced over 400 different works. Haydn was known to be a very personable character. He was well known for his honesty and sense of humor. Haydn loved to perform practical jokes. Haydn was very good friends with Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The two supposedly placed orchestral pieces together and continuously praised each other. Haydn was also the piano teacher for the famous Ludwig van Beethoven later in 1790. Haydn is credited with having helped to invent the musical form that is referred to as the sonata. His music often reflected his personality. He was very upbeat and was full of surprises, much as his music was too. Haydn lived with his parents until the age of 6. His father was the Marktrichter of Rohrau, a position similar to the modern-day mayor. Haydn's mother worked as a cook in the home of Count Harrach, the president aristocrat of Rohrau. Haydn's parents saw that he was musically gifted and decided to send him to live with his uncle in Hainburg. Haydn's uncle, Johann Matthias Frank, was a headmaster and choir director at a well-known school in Hainburg. At his uncle's home, Haydn learned to play harpsichord and violin. Haydn was often hungry at his uncle's and humiliated because he was only given old ratty sets of clothing to wear. It came as no surprise that Haydn moved out the first chance he got. In 1740, Haydn was singing treble parts in the church choir led by his uncle Frank. Haydn's flawless voice caught the attention of Georg von Reuter. Georg von Reuter was the choir master at St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna, Austria. Upon hearing Haydn singing, he invited Haydn to come live with him in Vienna. Haydn, of course, accepted. From 1740 to 1749, Haydn lived with the Reuters family and 4 other choristers. Over the course of 9 years, Haydn received only 2 music theory lessons from Reuter and was often hungry and mistreated. In 1749, Haydn was 18 and his voice had finally broken. Unable to sing the treble parts he could in the past, Haydn was of little use to Reuter. When Haydn pranked one of the other choir boys by cutting off his ponytail, Reuter had it with Haydn and expelled him from the choir. After leaving St. Stephen's Cathedral, Haydn stayed with his friend Johann Michael Spangler for a few months. During this time, Haydn worked as a music teacher and gave street serenades. In 1752, an Italian composer, Nicholas Porpora, hired Haydn as a valet accompanist. According to Haydn, Porpora taught him the true fundamentals of music. Next, Haydn was hired as the organ player for the Bohemian Chancellery Chapter by Count Friedrich Wilhelm von Haugwitz, the Supreme Chancellor of United Chancellery and the head director of Directorium et Publicis et Camera Libis. During this period of his life, Haydn devoted much of his free time to teaching himself musical theory he felt he had never fully learned. Haydn read counterpoint exercises in Gradus ad Parnassum by Johann Joseph Fox and studied the work of Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach. Haydn became a freelance musician working for the court of Vienna from 1754 to 1756. Haydn got a lot of attention for composing the music for the opera Der Krummteufel. These compositions were soon noticed by Countess Thun, who asked him to teach her piano as well as help her improve her singing. Haydn was next hired by Baron Karl Joseph Feuerenberg and composed his first string quartet during this time. Feuerenberg appreciated Haydn's music and recommended him to Count Morzin. In 1757, Count Morzin hired Haydn for what would be his first full-time job. Haydn became the Kapellmeister, music director, and led small music ensembles. The first symphonies that Haydn ever wrote were written for Count Morzin's small ensembles. Up until this point, Haydn had never really been financially secure enough to marry. While he was working for Count Morzin, Haydn married Maria Anna Aloysia Apollonia Keller. This marriage was not a happy one. Both Haydn and Maria had other lovers. Although both of them would have gotten a divorce, divorce was not allowed at this time in history. In 1761, Count Morzin had financial difficulties and was forced to let Haydn go. Haydn soon found a job working for the Esterházy family. Haydn was the vice Kapellmeister, but was in charge of all the musical business besides the church music. When the Esterházy's head Kapellmeister died, Haydn took over his position and was in charge of playing chamber music for the Esterházys, running their orchestra as well as composing all of the music. Haydn spent 30 years wearing the Esterházy livery and moving from palace to palace with the family. In 1790, Prince Nicholas of the Esterházys died and was replaced by Prince Anton. Prince Anton cut Haydn's wages and allowed Haydn to leave the family if he wished to. The German impresario Johann Peter Soliman invited Haydn to accompany him to England to conduct new symphonies when he heard Haydn had left the Esterházys. This trip to England was perhaps one of Haydn's best decisions in regard to his publicity. Haydn had become extremely well known in England and his concerts were typically sold out. He made a large profit off of the concerts and returned to England 2 years later to do more concerts with Salomon. In 1795, Prince Anton died and Haydn returned part-time to the Esterházys under Prince Nicholas II's watch. Haydn wrote 6 masses for the Esterházys during this time. Haydn also worked on music in his own private home in Gumpendorf. He spent a lot of his free time composing new pieces. In 1802, Haydn faced illness and old age. Haydn was no longer able to compose and used to sit and play Gott erlaubt Franz den Kaiser repeatedly on the piano. This piece was written by Haydn in 1797 and became the national anthem for both Austria and Germany. In 1808, a performance called The Creation was arranged for a final goodbye for Haydn. Beethoven was present at this concert as well as Salieri, who conducted. Haydn was forced to leave at intermission because he was so weak. On May 31, 1809, Haydn passed away. Mozart's Requiem was performed at Haydn's service. Haydn had a huge impact on classical music. He is credited with helping to invent the sonata form. He experimented with different musical techniques and style that not many had dared to before him. Haydn was a well-respected musician all over Europe during his time and continues to be to this day.